This is my take on classic Hoppin John, made in the form of a risotto that is full of colors and textures and flavors, topped with my one-of-a-kind Collard Pesto that sets off this dish like nobody's business. The first thing that goes in the pot is some sausage. Now I'm using a hot Italian sausage. You can use pork or a poultry sausage or even a well-seasoned vegetable sausage. We're gonna cook this until there are no traces of pink. So once my sausage is cooked through, no more pink, I'm gonna take it out of the pot into a bowl. And we're gonna add this back in at the end of the recipe. So now we're gonna cook the vegetables in the fat that was released by the sausage. My sausage was lean, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of olive oil to make up the difference. And I have 3 vegetables that goes in this. The first thing is some diced onion. The second thing is a sweet bell pepper or another kind of sweet pepper. And last but not least is a little bit of diced celery. And we're gonna cook these along with a pinch of salt until they've started to become tender. It'll take about 3 minutes. So the next thing that goes in the pot is our rice, one of the 2 key ingredients in a risotto. This is what's called a short grain rice, which means each little grain is a little bit stumpy, a little oval shape. It's the opposite of long, slender, long grain rices that cook up light and fluffy. We want a high starch rice because it's gonna make this risotto creamy. And so this is a rice called Carolina Gold that actually comes from the southeastern United States, but any rice you would use for risotto is gonna be just right in this recipe. All risottos are made pretty much the same way, no matter the ingredients. They're what I like to call the risotto rules. And one of the risotto rules is to make sure when you add the rice to the pot, you very thoughtfully and thoroughly stir it so that each grain of rice is coated in a little bit of fat. And that will come in handy when you start adding the warm liquid to the pot to ensure that it's creamy and tender all the way through by the time all the stock has gone in the pot. And now we come to the part of risotto that some people think is tedious, but it's really not. We're gonna start adding the liquid. You want your stock to go in about a half cup at a time and then start stirring. The rice will absorb this stock. And each time it's nearly dry, it's time to add another ladle full of stock. So I've now added 2.5, 3 cups of stock. You may not need all the stock that is in the pot that you've been keeping warm. You want your rice to be creamy with a little bit of a bite in the middle, like al dente pasta. Let's see what's going on. That's just right. You want a little bit of wiggle room that it won't get too mushy when you're adding your sausage and your peas back in. Now this is a variety called a Sea Island red pea. It's the original field pea that was used in Hoppin John. Any kind of dried field pea will work, but these Sea Island red peas are so good. And they've been cooked and drained and we're ready to go. Now you may find that when you add these solids back in, that your perfectly creamy risotto is now a little bit dry. Risotto isn't a soup, but it's not dry either. There should be a creaminess to it. So I'm gonna add 1 more ladleful of chicken stock to make sure it stays creamy. All right, and then gotta add 3 more things here at the end for a little bit of flavor. There's a little bit of butter, a little grated Parmesan cheese, just a little salt, and then a very generous pinch of pepper. And you have risotto. So now it's time to make the collard green pesto. So I blanched and shocked the collard greens, and all that means is to cook them in some boiling water until they're tender and then rinse them in some cold water. So there are my collards, and then we're gonna add some pecans, some chopped green olives for a little saltiness, some sun-dried tomatoes, a little garlic, Parmesan cheese, and a nice big, fat pinch of red pepper flakes. And you know your own threshold for how hot is hot, but I like a good big pinch and a tiny splash of sherry vinegar for some acidity. And then we're gonna put on the lid and give this a chop. So now I've processed this on a fairly low speed until everything is finely chopped. And I want to scrape down the side of the bowl to make sure all the ingredients are participating. Now with this step, we're going to go from the coarse chop to the smooth paste that we recognize as pesto. And I've removed the feed tube from the food processor so I can pour in there. It generally takes about 6 tablespoons of olive oil, but you really have to watch what's going on inside till you know you've added enough to get that smooth, creamy paste that looks right to you. Now, once you think you have enough oil in there, take your spatula and stir it around a bit and make sure. It should be thick enough to hold its shape on the spoon, but not so much that it's gone soupy. So now let's put this all together, a big scoop of our wonderful risotto. Now here's the thing about risotto. You really need a shallow bowl or a plate with a big, deep lip because risotto looks like a stew, but it's a little bit soupy. And the same thing, you should think maybe you need a fork and then reconsider and use a spoon. And then we're gonna top it with some of our delicious pesto. A little bit more grated Parmesan and another healthy pinch of red pepper flakes. And friends, there we have it. Hoppin John Risotto with collard green pesto. So let's see what we have going on here. That's so good. It's everything you expect in a risotto, but in ways you wouldn't expect it at all. We have rice, the field peas, the sausage, the pesto on top. It all comes together so that you can taste each of those things separately and together. And that's what makes this recipe a keeper. You're gonna love it.